Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Isis, Escape from Transylvania. The goddess next door and John Haynes must escape a horde of vampires on the hunt in this horror-filled Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Escape from Transylvania in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. I've gotten some responses to my videos about the Asian nail salons and these Afro-American Negro women who are getting beaten up almost every day in them that are quite troubling. Now, according to some of these Afro-American Negro women, it's supposed to be the black man's fault that she's getting beaten up in these businesses almost every day. And I have to say, it is not the black man's fault that these black women are getting beaten up in these Asian nail salons, these Asian beauty supply stores, or these Arab and Indian businesses in black communities. No, it is the black woman's choice to go into these businesses. It is the black woman's choice to keep spending her money in these businesses. And it is the black woman's choice to continue patronizing these businesses even after she is being brutalized and abused. Because I have heard numerous black men tell these black women out here to not go into these businesses. However, many of these black women are strong and independent, and you cannot tell them what to do. And because you cannot tell them what to do, they believe they can do whatever they please. However, anyone who believes they can do whatever they please has to understand the whole concept of cause and effect. The cause is you keep going into these businesses, and the effect is these men in these businesses have absolutely no respect for you, have absolutely no regard for you, and this is why these men brutalize and beat you in these stores, and it just doesn't seem to register in the minds of these Afro-American Negro women that the owners of these nail salons, these beauty supply stores, or these other Asian-owned businesses have no respect for you. And because they have no respect for you, this should be the reason why you should not bring your black dollars into these businesses, and you should find other alternatives to shopping at these Asian businesses. Because if a business does not provide you with quality service, then you should not be frequenting that business. But that logical concept doesn't seem to register in the minds of many of these Afro-American Negro females. No, because they have low self-esteem and they are spellbound, they believe that the white man's ice is colder, the Arab man's ice is colder, the Hispanic man's ice is colder, the Asian man's ice is colder, and the Indian man's ice is colder, even though that ice has flies in it, even though that ice has dirt on it, even though that ice is literally melting in front of them. They will go to these businesses and frequent those businesses and then look for justifications to continue frequenting those businesses, even though these owners have shown their absolute and complete contempt for them. And that's the saddest part of watching these Afro-American Negro women. These Afro-American Negro women would rather be slapped, beaten, and abused by Asian men rather than have enough pride and dignity to say that they have a value, and that because they have a value, they are not going to stand for this type of abuse. And because they're not going to stand for this kind of abuse, they're going to understand that they have value and that this business needs to earn their money. But because the Negro woman, again, has low self-esteem, she puts a higher value on this business than she does herself. And whenever a black man tries to tell her, look, you shouldn't shop at this business, what she does is say, you can't tell me what to do. And then after telling him that, they continue to frequent the business, and even though they're getting abused by the people in that business, this is supposed to be all the black man's fault. And I have to ask a critical question. How is it the black man's fault when you decide to continue shopping at a business that gives you poor customer service and does not give you the products that you want. How is it the black man's fault when you are the one who controls the jobs in your community, you are the one who controls the money in your community, and you are the one who decides to shop at these places? So it's not the black man's fault if he has no money that he's giving you to go there. It's not the black man's fault if he's not telling you to go there. It's not the black man's fault if you make these choices. And if you said that you were strong and independent and don't need a man, and that you can do all bad all by yourself, then you should have to deal with the consequences of doing bad all by yourself, because these decisions that you make are bad. But the big problem with your Afro-American Negro woman is that she never wants to take responsibility for the decisions she makes that are bad, such as supporting a group of people and giving them 97 to 98% of her dollars and allowing them to enrich themselves at her expense and showing how little value she has as a person. She wants to sit there and say that this is the black man's fault, but she is the one who said she does not need a man. She is the one who says she can do bad all by herself. And when bad happens to her and she winds up getting slapped, beaten, and abused by these Asian people, then she wants to talk about how black men need to step in. Why should a black man step in when you said you could do all of this by yourself? You were the one who said you did not need a man, and this is why these owners of these nail salons, these stores, they have no respect for you, because in their community, male authority is considered something important, and male leadership is considered important. And when they see that there are no men running the community, they see it as a way to take power in that community. So those Arab store owners, those Korean nail salon owners, those Korean and Chinese beauty supply store owners, they look at your community and they see it as weak, they see it as vulnerable, they see it as powerless, because they see that there are no men in the community. And there are no men in your community because you ran out most of the men back in the 1960s and the 1970s, and the beta males you raised from the 1970s onward, they were not taught how to be masculine men, because you said you could raise a boy to be a man. You said you could be the mother and the father. You said you could be the leader. And that's why you have no leaders in your community. And that's why your community is under siege by these Asian store owners, these Arab store owners, these Indian store owners, and these men have absolutely no respect or regard for you. And the reason why they have no respect or regard for you is because the men in your community don't have any backbone, because you emasculated them, and those men have no incentive to stand up for you because you keep putting a boot on their neck. And because you keep putting a boot on their neck, they can't stand up and be the men who could protect you, because you don't trust them to be men, because you don't want them to be men like their fathers, but you want to sit there and say it's the man's fault when it was your fault. And the big problem is you just don't want to take any responsibility for the mess that you made. But it's the black man's fault that you are winding up getting beaten in these stores. But the reason why you're getting beaten in these stores is because you destroyed your own community, and you did that when you drove the men out of your community, because it was the men in your community who built most of the businesses in your community. It was the men in your community who maintained the economy in your community. It was the men who protected your community. But because you bought into the feminist movement and the white liberals' welfare state, you drove all those men out of your community. And that's why your community is vulnerable right now. And that's why these Arabs, these Indians, these Chinese, they look at you and they see someone they can bully, they can abuse, And this is all about them taking control not only of the economy of the community, but eventually taking control over the community. Because once you subjugate the women, you can then take control of the community. And these beta males, they are no threat to these Chinese, Indian, and Arab men. They know it because they know if they can bring the so-called leader under subjection, they know that these beta males will then follow their lead. So they look at your community and they see it as an opportunity for themselves to gain further economic power, further political power, because the black community has been weakened by the incompetent leadership of black women. And these black women, again, are so belligerent that they just don't want to admit that the reason why they are being brutalized and beaten is because they follow the false ideology of white feminists. They still believe that they are strong and independent, even though these Asian store owners have 8 times the upper body strength they have, and these men are bigger and stronger than they are. They still think they can get in these men's faces like they do these beta males in the black community, and whenever they do this, they wind up with a rude awakening when these Asian men wind up giving them a pimp hand, because they're not going to sit there and take this verbal abuse from these black women, because they know that in their country and in this country they have rights, and that they know that you can't call the police on them in the same way you can call the police on this Negro. Because when it comes down to this Afro-American Negro female, she knows she can call some white police officers to take a black man out for a timeout, but she can't call those police officers on that Asian male, that Arab male, that Hispanic male, because those guys have economic power. And because they have economic power, when you dial 911, they've already got the councilman on speed dial to tell them to not show up. And that's how much power those businesses have, and that's why they can slap a black woman around and have no consequences come from those actions. But the belligerent Afro-American Negro female believes that she still has power. She believes that she can just come here with shaming language at guys like myself. But I see how deeply codependent these females are, and they're codependent because they sit there and are continuing to go to a business that abuses them, instead of being interdependent and saying that they have value, and if you had value, you would not take your black dollars into a foreigner's business, especially a foreigner's business that has absolutely no respect for you. No, a woman with high self-esteem, high self-confidence, and high self-worth, she's not going to be going to one of these Asian beauty supply stores or these nail salons and being abused by these store owners. No, she's going to either open up her own business for her own people, or she's going to shop at other black-owned businesses, because anybody with self-esteem and self-confidence is going to say that this product or this service is not worth being abused, that this is my dollar has high value, and if you want to get my dollars, you have to earn them. But in the black community, under the leadership of the Afro-American Negro female, a black dollar has no value because a black woman does not value herself. And because she does not value herself, she will spend her dollars with those who abuse her, and then she will try to justify continue spending her dollars with those who abuse her. And that shows us how she is just so codependent on the white liberal welfare state and the businesses that are parasites in her community, because she just does not understand what value is. But she's going to sit there and say a black man needs to protect her and stand up for her, when she doesn't value black men, and she wants people to value her, but she doesn't value herself. And that's the other big problem with this Afro-American Negro female, is she wants us to place her at high value when she places herself at lower value, because if she valued herself again, she would show it in her actions, and the greatest action she would show it in is taking 98% of her black dollars and spending them with people who look like herself. But because she doesn't value herself, she spends those black dollars with everybody but a black person, and then tells black men that this is their fault when it's not their fault. The person who's at fault is this black female who said she was strong, independent, did not need a man, and now that those men have left her alone, she is now sitting there talking about she wants the protection of black men she says to have no value, have no worth, and then she wants them to see her as having value after telling them that they're worthless. I don't know where her logic comes from, but it's just mind-boggling to me that she's going to sit there and say black men need to value her enough to protect her while she goes into an Asian business and wants to justify continue going into that Asian business after telling those black men that they're nothing, when all those black men are doing is showing her basic cause and effect. You said your man couldn't do anything for you, so when your man doesn't do anything for you, which is the cause, the effect is you wind up getting beaten up by these Asian store owners and humiliated by these Asian store owners. And that's all your fault, because you can't say this is the black man's fault, because we're not the ones who are giving you money to go to these places. We're not the one telling you to go to these places. You're doing this on your own, and because you are too belligerent to listen to black men, whatever happens to you, and you have to deal with the consequences of that, because at the end of the day, the choices you made are the reason why these things are happening to you, and they're happening to you again because you refuse to listen to anyone. You believe you know better than everybody, and because you believe you know better than everybody, you want to go out here and do whatever you want and never deal with a single consequence of any of your actions. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct titles, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.